Good morning, dear students. Today's our new topic is Lesson 10, Characteristics and Contrasts in Distinguishing the Principles of CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning. I'm your English teacher, Yuldash Vasivara. Let's go. What is CLIL? If it is discussed deeply, it is compulsory to investigate and study the principles of content and language integrated learning in teaching foreign language. While advertised as a dual-focused approach that gives equal attention to language and content, CLIL can be described as an educational approach where curricular content is taught through the medium of a foreign language. Typically, to students participating in some form of mainstream education at the primary, secondary, or in further education system. Also, the first L in CLIL is meant to stand for any language. It will be an extreme case of denial to claim that this is also the case in reality. Content and language integrated learning. Languages tend to be recreated from small groups of prestigious languages all over the world, having the prevalence of English as CLIL medium is overwhelming. Without a doubt, there are many characteristics that it shares with other types of bilingual education, such as content-based instruction and immersion education, which have been widely adopted in different contexts. CLIL is about using a foreign language, not a second language. That is, the language of instruction is one that students will mainly encounter in the classroom, given that it is not regularly used in the wider society they live in. The dominant CLIL language is English, reflecting the fact that a command of English as an additional language is increasingly regarded as a key literacy feature worldwide. CLIL also implies that teachers will normally be non-native speakers of the target language. They are not, in most cases, foreign language experts, but instead content experts, because classroom content is not so much taken from everyday life or the general content of the target language culture, but rather from content subjects, from academic scientific disciplines, or from the professions. This means that CLIL lessons are usually timetabled as content lessons, example, biology, music, geography, mechanical engineering, while the target language normally continues as a subject in its own right in the shape of foreign language lessons taught by language specialists. In content and language integrated programs, typically less than 50% of the curriculum is taught in target language. So, furthermore, it is usually implemented once learners have already acquired literacy skill in their first language, which is more often at the secondary than the primary level. It could be interpreted as a foreign language enrichment measure packaged into content teaching. According to Malo, the global split of content and language integrated learning, the pace of which has surprised even its most ardent advocates, suggests looking into language policy in order to understand the driving forces behind it. As it happens, a recent conceptual reorientation in the study of language policy, expanding the view beyond deliberate central planning toward language practices and beliefs, provides an excellent foil for this undertaking. In most places, The implementation of content and language integrated learning has been fueled from two directions. So, what are these? What are the directions? The first one is high-level policy making and grassroots actions. So, what does it mean, grassroots actions? With the detailing parental and teacher choices. What we see above all is individuals reacting to what they rightly perceive as major shifts in society and economic life, with both becoming increasingly international, requiring ever better educated employees who know certain languages that are considered crucial in the job market. Despite CLIL being cast in the role of an important language enrichment measure, precise learning goals and objectives are largely missing. Also, a series of transnational expert groups has translated the high-level claims into conceptualizations, curricular guidelines, and model materials. Some national education systems have actually responded with substantial investments into CLIL implementation, teach education and research, leaving the force to the grassroots stakeholders. In this way, it is important to note that the standard of comparison in such studies are not native speakers of the medium of instruction, but learners studying the target language in traditional foreign language classes, often attending the same school as the CLIL students and usually referred to as mainstream or non-CLIL students. According to the given the fact that CLIL students nearly always continue with their regular foreign language program alongside their CLIL content lessons. Those have a time advantage over their peers. It is also to be expected that their foreign language test scores exceeded those of the mainstream learners. Several studies comparing CLIL and non-CLIL writing concord in finding that CLIL students had at their disposal a wider range not only of lexical but also morphosyntactic resources, which they displayed in more elaborate and more complex structures. What was not to be assumed outright given the focus on meaning in classroom is the fact that CLIL students also show a higher degree of accuracy not only in inflectional affixation and tense use but also in spelling. And not on morphosyntax should be added at this point. Also, some studies show that CLIL students outperformed their peers in some morphosyntactic components, such as sentence complexity, affixable inflection, or the other use of placeholders. Other properties, notably the use of unacceptable subjects, contradiction forms, seemed to remain unaffected. Finally, the area where difference between CLIL students and mainstream learners is most noticeable is their spontaneous or oral production. All the quantitative surveys so far show content and language integrated language learning students to be ahead all dimensions of their respective speaking constructs, a result that was underscored by self-reports obtained in students' interviews where learners consistently mentioned greater fluency and speaking confidence. Observations of different approaches. It has been claimed that CLI students work more persistently on tasks and show a higher tolerance of frustration, thus acquiring a higher degree of procedural competence in the subject. So, it is the end of our PPT. As a home task, you should look through the implementation of content and language integrated learning, observation of different approaches, classroom interaction and pedagogy